Hello, welcome back to the Gold Giant podcast for our One Piece review. How you doing, Jose?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good, Gerell. Today's a pretty good day. Nice weather we're having, I think. I mean, I know our listeners can't see it, but I'm hoping that they have good weather wherever they are.
Speaking of which, you and I are not in the same location, and that explains that we were actually on hiatus for a little bit. We took a couple weeks off because you were visiting me and some friends.
Yes, I was. I was really looking forward to it, and I mean, it's been a while since we got in person. It did a lot of good stuff. Just seeing everyone back, so it was a fun time, and I think everyone really needed just seeing everyone back in person again. So that was really fun.
Right. For context, Jose lives in North California, I live in Southern California, and we haven't seen each other physically in 2 years because of the gosh dang pandemic. But we had a lovely time, we saw some old friends, and it was great. And we are back now, ready to begin with the Barati Arc. And man, let me tell you, after taking those few weeks off, it felt like returning to an old friend, just reading these chapters again, going back to the One Piece crew, the Straw Hat crew. It was really good.
Yeah.
For full disclosure, this is one of my favorite arcs, especially in the East Blue Saga, because this is the part where One Piece really starts to hit his stride, and Oda, it feels like he's finally figuring out his flow at this point in the story.
Yeah, I can see that too. Yeah. We see like they introduce kind of like the new environment, the new I guess the new location where most of the story's taking place, as well as like introducing new important characters involved in the story too.
Right, and for better or for worse, we start to get a feel for a little bit of Oda's formula, such as Luffy going after the big bad, charging in, and his right-hand man going after the second bad guy. We'll see more of that in the next arc, but this is where you start to see where that's originating from. But let's go ahead and jump in. Last we left off, Usopp just joined our crew, and he's starting to get a feel for what his role on the crew is. The first thing he does is he invents the Straw Hats' black flag, the skull and crossbones, and he uses Luffy's original design, which was his straw hat on a skull and crossbones, and Luffy's not the best artist. It looks like chicken scratch. But Usopp's actually quite an artist. He's pretty capable. He says he used to draw on walls for years, and so he uses basically his graffitiing skills to create their emblem.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Usopp's really like a jack of all trades. I mean, we also seen that since the last island they visited, they got a brand new ship, the Going Merry. But I think it goes by a different name, right, on the manga, or
It depends on your translation. It's either the Merry-Go or the Going Merry. In the Viz version, the one that we're reading off of Shonen Jump, the app, they call it the Merry-Go, but its name is
Merry-Go.
interchangeable.
Okay.
Kind of like merry-go-round.
Yeah. Okay, I see.
Speaking of the Going Merry, they realize that they have some cannons on the ship, and Luffy tries to fire it at a rock. He misses. Usopp decides, hey, let me give that a try, and he's able to hit the shot dead on based off of Luffy's first shot. And from there, Luffy gives him his official role as the sharpshooter.
Yeah.
And because he blew up that rock, there was a sailor who happened to be resting on said rock. He boarded their ship looking for vengeance, and Luffy and crew pretty much knock him down. And turns out Zoro knows this guy, because it's just a small world, and it's Johnny, an old friend of Zoro, who calls him brother. And he's paired up with another guy named Yosaku. And turns out they were old bounty hunting buddies from back in the day. And turns out Yosaku is sick. He's very ill, and he's suffering from scurvy, which I find interesting because Oda likes to actually introduce real-life pirate issues that they used to face back in the day during the Age of Exploration.
We also see that like they're not super heartless, but they actually help them out because I'm guessing because they were friends with Zoro, so they give them some citrus fruit and help them to cure it and stuff.
Nami is the first one to actually notice that it's scurvy, And I imagine the dead giveaway is that his teeth is falling out. And in fact, speaking of piracy and pirate media, I've actually was watching Our Flag Means Death, and it's a show on HBO Max. And they also had a little moment where they were dealing with scurvy as well, and one of their characters' teeth was falling out, and that was like the dead sign for them.
Oh man. Oh, I've been meaning to watch that show. I mean, I'm glad that we're getting more media with pirates and stuff, but I'm hearing a lot of good stuff about it. So,
it's so good, it makes me
hopefully I'll
angry.
get a chance.
They actually just announced that there was going to be a season 2 this week on the 1st.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
cool.
I'm less angry now that we're getting a season 2. I'm not going to spoil anything, but... So they give Yosaku some lime juice. They squeeze some limes for him, and that picks him back up. And historically, the British were known for using limes over lemons because I believe limes were not only cheaper, but they lasted longer than lemons. And the citrus is enough to counteract the scurvy because essentially it comes from malnutrition, and that gives you enough vitamins and minerals to keep you going and stave off the scurvy. And after
just a little side note, or not to sidetrack too much, but I remember the first time I ever heard of scurvy was in an episode of The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, where they had like a scurvy awareness month or something like that.
Really?
And everybody was all the kids were like eating limes and stuff, and I was like, oh, I guess it's for me. I thought like, oh, it's still like an ongoing thing. Okay, better
yeah,
eat
like
up
quicksand.
Yeah,
that's great. So after Yosaku is revived, they mention that they're absolutely hungry. The Straw Hat crew has not been eating that well, and they recommend that they go to Baratie, which is an ocean-going restaurant. And Johnny mentions to Zoro that Hawkeye happens to go there. And he immediately breaks out into a sweat. So Hawkeye is a name we have to keep a note of going into the future. So when they get to Baratie, it is a ship that is in the form of a fish, essentially. And as soon as they get there, they meet a gentleman by the name of Lieutenant Iron Fist Fullbody. He is a minister of the Navy, so he's a military man. And he recognizes that the Straw Hat crew are flying a pirate flag, and he tries to shoot them down immediately with his cannons that are on board. And Luffy explodes into this balloon shape, and he's able to deflect the cannon away from his ship. And fortunately, it lands in the direction of the restaurant, blowing a hole in the top upper portion of the ship. So we get a scene inside of the ship after Fullbody himself goes in, and we meet Sanji, who is the assistant chef of Baratie itself. And Fullbody mistakes him for the waiter. Turns out, no, he's the chef. And
I think what happened was that so Fullbody was eating. I think he had a problem with his soup or something like that, and then he was like telling Sanji, he's like, hey, let me speak to the chef, and then Sanji's like, oh well, I am the chef, and like instead of like giving like customer service, he's like, you know what? My soup's fine. You're the problem, and doesn't he like kick his butt or something?
Yes. So the manga goes back and forth between talking about Sanji and talking about Zeph, the head chef, because he's the one who got shot, and the cooks bring Luffy on board to figure out what his payment's going to be. But in the meantime, while they're doing that, Fullbody is dealing with Sanji. He's on a date. Sanji brings some soup. He lays it down, and Fullbody tries to show off by saying, oh, I know what this kind of wine is. It's a vintage whatever or other. And turns out he's wrong. He apparently tried to bribe a chef to bring him a specific meal and a very specific wine to show that he's more knowledgeable. Sanji was not that guy. He says, no, you're wrong, you're dumb. This is some regular cheapo wine. Basically making him look like a fool. And so to make Sanji look bad, he puts a fly in his soup from his own personal reserve. I'm like, why does this guy just have flies in his pocket, I guess? He says, what's a fly doing in my soup? Sanji says, forgive me, it's hard to tell, but it appears to be doing the backstroke. And the whole restaurant starts to laugh. And he just, he breaks the table because he's a baby boy. He's got little pee-pee syndrome. And Sanji proceeds to hand him his ass. Next time we see him, he's just completely bloodied up. And that immediately shows us, the audience, Sanji is not to be messed with. And so, immediately after that, we're back with Luffy and Zeph, the head chef, and he tries to cut off Luffy's leg. Joke is, Zeph does not have both his legs. He has a peg leg, which is, your standard pirate stereotype. And he wants to take Luffy's leg as a recompense. And that kind of shows us, the reader, that this group of chefs are pretty rough and tumble. They mention that they're used to serving pirates, as well as marines and normal rich folks, so the atmosphere is a little aggressive. They're not afraid to get their hands dirty. And it's kind of like a mixture of a dinner and show for a lot of the customers, which is pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't think I'd go and eat here, but I dig it.
Yeah, I think I would be more afraid of not getting anyone mad at me and trying to enjoy my food, but from what I've seen, I think the food's gonna be okay, but just gotta watch out for the Sanji guy,
Right, and I'm the kind of restaurant goer that doesn't like to cause any issues, because I learned very early, don't piss off the people who make your food. And so you especially don't want to piss off these people. In fact, while there's a ruckus going on between Sanji and Full Body, Zeph comes out and he kicks Sanji in the face, knocking him down, and then he immediately kicks Full Body in the face. So he's indiscriminatory with his violence. So yeah,
I kind of thinking about it. I don't have much experience working with customer service, but I'm kind of I think Sanji and then the rest of his crew are pretty cool for just kind of fighting back with the customer.
Oh man, I have worked customer service for a handful of years, and let me tell you, there's been many times I just wanted to just lay hands on somebody, and I'm like, this will cost me my job. I cannot, but these guys are living the dream, let me tell you.
I know.
Working...
it's pirate rules, so...
Exactly. Working customer service or working retail, people will test you, and you kind of see the worst of humanity in those kind of jobs.
Yeah.
So, speaking of the worst of humanity, a gentleman walks into the restaurant, and he comes bearing a gun, saying that he doesn't have any money, but he wants them to feed him. And Patty, who is not an assistant chef necessarily, but he's a chef that's just below Sanji. And I love his design. He reminds me of Sinbad and Popeye mixed into one. He's got those massive forearms. He proceeds, just like Sanji, he proceeds to beat the shit out of this person. And they essentially kick him out of the restaurant because he can't pay. And all the other restaurant goers are clapping and cheering, and they're definitely enjoying the show here. And once Gin is tossed out, that's the name of the gentleman, Gin. Sanji finds him and feeds him a plate of what looks to be rice, like a simple meal. And Gin just eats it up. He's crying. He's drooling all over it. He's apparently been starving for days on end. And once
then...
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say then and we already seen how Sanji treats people that doesn't agree with his food, but we also see kind of the soft side of him where he kind of feels bad for Gene and actually gives him food, and it's kind of he switched personalities now, that where now he's gonna treat someone starving to death feeding them and just giving him attention for it.
Right. Sanji definitely has a code of honor that we're just barely getting a peek into. There's more to this guy, especially. And it's really interesting just to see that we're initially shown his rough and tumble side like the rest of the chefs and pirates, but he's got this soft, nurturing side as well.
So then, after Sanji feeds Gene some food, he's very grateful for it, and they kind of kick it off, and they seem to kind of get along with each other. But now, Gene goes on his way, and so we have Gene is actually one of the members of Don Krieg's pirate crew, and he comes in and starts making ruckus again. Once again, this time, Gene actually was. I think Gene was right there next to him, right, trying to kind of control him, but Don Krieg was just making more commotion when he arrived.
Sort of. So how it happens is Gene came in already starving. He was already malnourished. He was already worse for wear. And turns out his entire crew is like that. So after Sanji feeds him, he leaves. He goes about his business. Sanji gets rid of all the evidence because he doesn't want Zeph to know that he fed somebody for free. And he goes to tell Zeph that they can get food here. And while that's happening, Luffy, to pay off his debt, he's forced to work for the ship for about a year. Unpaid, of course. And his crew is just there making fun of him. Also, side note, this is when we start to see another side of Sanji, aside from him being rough and aggressive. He's a total simp. As soon as he sees Nami, he gets the heart eyes. He's obsessing over her. His text is even different. Like, it's all bubbly and lovey-dovey.
I know.
And he gets super aggressive with the men, super weak with the women, giving her free food and everything, and forcing the men to pay for it. But 2 days after Gin leaves, that's when Krieg shows up. He has his galleon, which is a massive ship. I think it's the largest sailing ship that you can have. At least the classification of it is the largest that you can have. And his thing is completely torn to shreds. It's got half of its that front decoration. Looks like a saber-toothed cat. It's completely shattered. His sails are all messed up. It looks like one of his masts is breaking in half. He's not in good shape. And so Gin is physically carrying him into the ship. And they're both begging for food. Like, literally begging and crying for it. The chef says, no, you don't got any money. You gotta leave. But here comes Sanji, feeding him again in front of everyone. And everyone's like, no, we don't do that here. What are you doing, Sanji? And this is when things take a turn for the worse. As soon as Don Krieg gets some food in his belly, he clotheslines Sanji, sending him across the dang restaurant. And he starts... Gin says, hey, we shouldn't be doing this. Krieg says, shut up, I'm the captain. We're taking this ship. We're taking everything. And he demands that they make him 100 rations for his surviving pirates.
Yeah.
And the story for these guys is that they were actually from the Grand Line. Like, they went to the Grand Line, they lasted all of less than a week, and they came back just tattered. So
then I think he had like multiple ships right under his name, and all of them were just completely destroyed within.
Yes. He was known for having an armada of over 50 ships, a completely stocked up crew. I believe they said he had 5,000 men. Yes, he commanded 50 ships and 5,000 fighting men. Never lost a battle. He is the Don of the pirate armada. So that's nuts that this man who is so confident in himself, he's armed to the teeth. He's got armor. He's got pauldrons, gauntlets. He's got guns hitting all over his body, weapons out the ass, and his crew was completely decimated by a storm, quote unquote. However, we find out it wasn't just a storm that completely obliterated his crew. Turns out they're running from somebody. One guy, one person, by the name of Hawkeye Mihawk. Now, this is the part where I kind of fanboy, because just thinking about one guy decimating 50 ships with just a single sword in this crazy show is ridiculous.
And it so happens that the very same man that almost destroyed this single pirate armada just came back to stop by again and just make more havoc on them again.
Now, I'm not going to get into spoiler territory here, but there's an aspect of the Grand Line that we're going to cover later on, which is that the Grand Line is located in between the calm belts, essentially two strips of water, where there is very little waves, very little weather, next to zero wind. So anyone who tries to sail through the calm belt, they're going to be pretty much stuck. And they essentially have to row up out of there. And
I think that's where Sea Kings reside too, right? Like aside from having no way to like to swim around in those waters, there's also the Sea Kings, right?
Yes, there are Sea Kings everywhere, but they especially nest in the calm belt. They're infesting that location, which spans the entire globe, but their nest seems to be there. Like, I imagine that's where they lay their eggs, that's where their young comes from. That makes the most sense to me, but who knows, it's fantasy. And so, not only did they have to go through terrible weather. They had to row through the calm belt, which is infested with sea kings, like the one that Luffy punches out in the first story arc in Romance Dawn, the first chapter, I should say. And they were running from this guy, Hawkeye Mihawk. Now, he's situated in basically a large coffin-shaped ship. It's not a proper sailing ship. If you try to sail this thing out in the middle of the ocean, you're going to capsize really fast. And when he rolls up, his sails are rolled up. He's just got some candles on there. So me personally, my headcanon is that he doesn't even unfurl his sails. He just goes forward with just sheer spite.
Oh,
Because the
I
story
can see that.
between his encounter with Krieg, because Zeph even mentions that, they probably interfered with their nap. And essentially he did. He woke up Mihawk while he was sleeping, and Mihawk just wasn't having it. And he just started wrecking shop with all of his ships. And he's following him. He's still following him from within the Grand Line, through the calm belt, out to where Baratie is in the Beast Blue. This man is petty, and I love him.
I know. I think they did ask him, like, even just straight up. They're like, "Why do you keep like chasing these guys?" And then I think Mihawk was like, "Oh, I'm just bored, and I just want to play with them now."
2 words. He says 2 words for fun. I love this man. And so we see
He
him
has
in
good
action.
sense of style too.
Oh yeah, like he's got a complete Spanish conquistador vibe about him. He's got the hat and the feather. He's got the cross. Even his ship is kind of in the shape of a cross, like the mast anyway. And the sword on his back especially. Like he's definitely got Spanish Inquisition vibes for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But turns out Zoro is searching for this man. This is the one that he's been looking for, and he immediately challenges Mihawk to a fight. And during all of this confusion, Nami has just pieced out. She has took the Going Merry and has just left.
Oh yeah, I think by the time there was this whole kerfuffle, like the Don Krieg pirates and Mihawks, I think yeah, Nami just took off on her own and practically stole all of the belongings and the ship of the Straw Hats, and this is all according to I believe Yosaku, who swam back like on a panda shark or something like that, and told
That was
Luffy all
actually
about it.
later, him swimming back,
Oh,
per
later on.
se.
Oh,
Because
okay.
they're just shown on the ship.
Oh,
And
okay.
Nami leaves. Both of Johnny and Yosaku relay that message. And Zoro says, yo, we should just leave her behind. Who cares about her? But Luffy says, no, he wants Nami, nobody else. They're going to go back and go get her. And so he sends Usopp, Johnny, and Yosaku on a second ship, essentially, to go seek her out.
Oh, yes. Yeah. You're right. Yeah.
But before they take off, that's when Mihawk shows up.
Okay.
And as much as I would love to talk about it, I could honestly talk about Zoro's encounter with Mihawk for 2 hours plus. I kind of want to just save that for another podcast, like a mini podcast episode, because this fight is probably one of the best fights One Piece has had in its almost 25 year long history. Like the choreography, the fact that Oda does not waste a single panel, and it's short. It's only a chapter and some change. Like if you don't include the intro and ending of their encounter, the fight itself is literally just one whole chapter. And Oda is infamous, straight up infamous, for having just the craziest, longest drawn out fights. I'm talking fights that last like 20 plus chapters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this one was just so crisp, so clean. And this is a masterclass, in my opinion, of how a fight should go down in any comic book, manga, cartoon, what have you. Straight to the point. Every action has weight and informs the story, informs the character's mental state. It's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be its own mini podcast episode. So, skipping all that, long story short, Zoro tries to fight Mihawk, who is the world's greatest swordsman, the guy that Zoro essentially wants to be. He wants to take his position. And he just wipes the floor with Zoro. He's completely untouchable. And he ends the fight by slashing him across the chest, leaving a very deep wound. Zoro falls into the ocean. Luffy tries to go grab him. And he tries to pick a fight with Mihawk as well, but he can't do anything to him. Mihawk just sidesteps and tells Zoro to strive and surpass him, don't give up, follow your heart, all that good stuff. And essentially he wants to fight him again when he's tougher, because he sees a lot of potential in Zoro.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just devastated at the end. Like, he's frustrated that he lost, but at himself as well for still not being strong enough. But we'll see more of him later on.
Right. He's essentially finding out that he's just a big fish in a small pond, but once he gets out into the ocean, he realizes just how small he is. And during this time, Don Krieg tries to take vengeance on Mihawk for decimating his entire forces, almost ending his whole career. He takes some shots at Mihawk, but we're shown that bullets don't really faze him that well. He makes another slash, and this dude just destroys whatever is left of his galleon. It was already in pieces. It's nothing left at this point. It's just barely even floating there. Because Krieg and his entire forces are standing on driftwood at this point. And so, they still take this as an opportunity to take Baratie. And so they try to invade. The chefs come out and they hit a couple switches. They do a couple of diddly-doos. And they basically create a platform for everyone to fight on. And Sanji joins in. And this is when we learn what his fighting style is, what makes Sanji unique. He uses his feet. Sort of like, I'm not a martial arts guy, but I imagine it's kind of like Taekwondo, which is more kick heavy. He does a lot of... Okay. He's a kicker. He does not use his hands in combat because he believes he's going to get his hands dirty.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because you see him also doing capoeira style techniques where he's like doing handstands and stuff. I'm like, you're getting your hands dirty right there. Just put them on dirt, my dude. Just wash your hands. Don't be nasty.
Yeah, but we just through all these little interactions, we just see how dedicated Sanji is to his cooking, where, yeah, he just doesn't want to mess up his hands, because how else he's going to cook, but he uses his kicks and feet to defeat his foes.
Right. And we can kind of relate to that. We're artists. Our hands are essentially our lives, you know?
Yeah.
So I get it. Dude should insure his hands if that's a thing they can do there.
Mm-hmm.
And the story gets a little complex at this point, because One Piece loves to throw stories within stories at us. We get a little bit of Sanji's backstory when Gin shows up, because we find out not only is he a formidable fighter, he is also Zeph's right-hand man, and he essentially breaks Zeph's peg leg off, has him by gunpoint, and that throws Sanji into a flashback to show what his relationship with Zeph is. So, years ago, they don't say how many years ago, but Sanji's a young boy at this point. I can't imagine he's maybe older than 8, maybe 10. Zeph was formerly a pirate known as Red Shoes Zeph. So Zeph was the one who taught Sanji how to use his legs in combat, and his shoes were dyed with the blood of his enemies, therefore calling him Red Shoes Zeph.
I think even I just wanted to add, like, I think even when would Gene even identify as Zeph, he knew that he was known as a Red Shoes Zeph before he became a chef, right?
Yes, Zeph was a pirate who was also a chef. So he was known for pirating while cooking, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Maybe he was a professional chef before he became a pirate. It's not exactly clear. But he was very famous. He was in the Grand Line for about a year, came back, and he documented everything in a logbook. That's another thing that I was going to say Zod. That was another thing that Zeph wanted, was not just Baratie the ship. He wanted the logbook that Zeph has written down.
Mm-hmm.
But Zeph raids Sanji's ship, the one that he's serving on, because he's also on a restaurant. Like a restaurant. It looks like a cruise liner, essentially. And Sanji's cooking over there. He's a child chef, and he's constantly picked on by the other chefs. They say not to waste any food because you never know when you're going to go hungry again. And Sanji wants to just throw out old, nasty food like a normal person. But I get it. Zeph invades, and they're in the middle of a storm. Sanji gets knocked off, and Zeph immediately tries to save the kid, which is strange because he's a bloodthirsty pirate, but, he sees a little bit of himself in Sanji. They both fall overboard, and they wash up on this really tiny island it's a weird shape. It's kind of like a mushroom in the fact that it's really tall. It's just nothing but cliffs. There's no real way to get off the island because the elevation is so high, and the water has
Yeah,
just been carving the island to pieces to where it's just unhospitable.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It was kind of like shaped like a mushroom, where like the sides are like curved inwards, so that it's hard to kind of like to get off from that little platform of land.
Yeah, and it looks as though if you try to get back up, if you you can dive off into the water, but if you try to climb back up, it looks impossible because it's essentially got a horizontal plate at the very top, preventing you from even getting on it again.
And
And
once they kind of regain consciousness, we see that it's only Zeph and Sanji stranded on this island. However, uh, the Zeph actually had a couple bags of food and one huge bag of treasure, I believe, right? Or well, actually, that's a little spoiler. I'm getting ahead of myself, but
a little,
um,
we find out that
yeah,
the
yeah.
Zeph was a little smart. He got two big old bags of goods. He gives Sanji one bag, and he keeps another bag for himself. However, Zeph's bag is 3 times Sanji's size. And he says they should probably be there for about 5 days. Keep an eye out for whatever ship is out there, and we'll try to get off this island as fast as we can. But essentially, they're in survivor mode. They have to ration out their food because they don't know how long they're going to be there. And what Zeph thought was going to be 5 days, they end up there about 30, 70 days.
Yeah, it's like 70 days.
Yeah, he thought they're going to be there for 5. They're there for 70. Sanji is a pretty smart lad. He tries to ration out his food for 20 days, and he does a really good job. And he mostly fills up on water. There's no natural source of water, so whenever it rains, it collects in natural pools, and Sanji was surviving off of that. And they're surviving for a very long time. It's not normal for a human being to survive for that long without nutrition. I believe Bear Grylls always says you can go 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food, and 7 days is 2 months and some change.
Yeah.
So Sanji's starving. Let's see. By day 70, so actually they're longer than 70 days. It's just day 70 is when Sanji enacts his plan to steal Zeph's food. Because turns out, it looks like Zeph hasn't even touched his food. Sanji cuts it open to see what's in there, and turns out it's all treasure. He didn't take any food for himself. So the only reason why Zeph was surviving for as long as he has, and this dude is emaciated, he's skeletal at this point. He takes a rock and breaks his leg in half and tears it off, and he's survived on eating his own foot, which that's insane.
I know, that's so metal, like holy cow.
Right, it's metal as fuck. I remember looking at that panel when I was in 5th grade
I
and
know.
seeing him break his leg in black and white. I'm like, I don't know if I should be looking at this, but this is dope.
Yeah. I don't know why, but they changed it in the anime. I don't know if you've seen that one where what it was instead.
I
Uh
have not watched the anime, so I
okay.
don't know. I mean, I've watched bits and pieces, but not this.
Yeah. I think what changed was that I think before they arrive at the platform, I think Zeph was kind of like rescuing, the a bag of goods and also Sanji, but his leg got tangled with some change. So, in order for both of them to survive, I think he has had to somehow like break it off like underwater and then try to swim upwards,
That's
which
interesting.
which which still I think both are pretty insane. Like both are pretty metal, like things that he did for survival.
Yeah, I kind of like the fact that he eats his leg instead, because that makes more sense narratively to me. Oh, they're actually on the island for 85 days as I look through my notes. 85 days, so another
Okay.
2 weeks after they have this encounter with each other, where he reveals what he did to Sanji.
I think maybe because the first time I found out about this story was in the anime. I don't know. I think I kind of like the when he chopped his leg off like underwater because I just felt like it kind of adds to the relationship between Zev and Sanji. But I think both are pretty strong.
Yeah, I think the fact that he essentially gave Sanji all of his food is what really cemented that even though Zeph is a rough and tumble edge lord kind of guy, he's got a heart of gold. You know, he looks out for the little guy, and Sanji seems to adapt that into himself as well. He's very aggressive when it comes to men. He's very straightforward, but he also has a nurturing side to him, which feels cemented with Zeph.
Yeah.
And so, uh, after this flashback, we jump back into the fight between Luffy, Sanji, all the chefs versus Krieg and Geen, as well as Pearl, their resident psycho, who lights himself on
Yeah.
fire. I
And he
mean,
has a really big mouth.
it seems like he suffers some form of mental illness. So I don't like making fun of him in that regard because when he's triggered, because he was raised in the wild, so he learned to light himself on fire. So the man definitely has a form of PTSD where whenever he feels like he's in trouble, he resorts to lighting himself on fire, which is very strange. But I wasn't a big fan of Pearl. I felt like he was kind of just filler because immediately after they deal with him, they deal with Geen.
Yeah.
And Geen seems to be a much bigger threat. Not only physically, because dude can fight. He was wrecking Sanji's shit during this whole thing. However,
I
before he
really
can...
like the weapons he has. Like, I really like the weapons he has, like the double wielded thing. Like, I don't know what to even call those, but I
I
thought it
believe
looked
those
pretty
are
cool.
tonfas? Yeah, it's a Asian style weapon where the closest thing I can say that's a American equivalent is kind of like a police baton, where they
Okay.
have the handle on one end that's sticking out, and you can rest the long side on your forearm.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the name of the martial arts style that utilizes this in the other countries, but you can use both of them, and that's a whole martial art right there. If you're a Soul Calibur player, that's a weapon style that I think what's her name Talim uses.
Oh, okay. I haven't played that one yet.
Uh, However, he has like some kind of steel cannonball at the end, which adds, I imagine, not only to the momentum of his swings, but just the lethality of it.
Mm-hmm.
But he's very formidable. And thematically, I love him far more than Pearl because he actually has some hesitation to him. Because these chefs, they saved his life, so he has reservations towards attacking them. He's known
Mm-hmm.
as this ruthless man. I believe they call him the demon because he's
Yeah,
just,
the man demon.
yeah, he's just so aggressive and so vile with his fighting style. But when it comes to these guys, he says that they were the first people who ever in his life shown him kindness before. And that stopped me in my tracks, you know? Like, what do you do when you only know the most toxic side of humanity and then all of a sudden someone shows you kindness and nurturingness? What do you do? He was having an existential crisis, and it was wonderful to see.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like throughout this whole arc, like I was really like interested like in Gene, just his relationship. I mean, I know that the main threat was Don Krieg, but I think Gene had some dimension into his character where we kind of see him like kind of switch sides back and forth, but also like trying to like struggle to what does he want to do? Does he want to like stay loyal to his new friends or stay loyal to his captain?
Right. And that struggle between his morality was honestly one of the parts about this story arc that I took the most from, you know, aside from Zoro, Mihawk, and Sanji and Zeph. Gin and his relationship with Sanji, and to a lesser extent, Don Krieg, that was really what pulled me in. Now, for the rest of this fight, aside from gushing over Gin, Don Krieg is a little shit, and he's just being incredibly annoying to not only Luffy, but the rest of the chefs. And during this fight, we are shown that Krieg is a tactical type of fighter. Not so much like Captain Kuro from the last arc. Krieg uses underhanded tactics like deception. He says that he's going to shoot a bomb, a gas bomb at the crew. Turns out it's an exploding bomb. He shoots spikes out of his, what are these, gauntlets? He's got guns lined up all up inside of him. And he's even wearing body armor, which is weird to me because he's got bullets, everyone's got guns and some kind of firearm. And armor was made obsolete once firearms were more commonly available. And
You're right. That is kind of weird.
Yeah, he seems to be bulletproof, but they say it's made out of steel, which is weird because even musket fire or musket bullets, the ones that are just completely round, they will penetrate the shit out of that kind of armor if it's just made out of steel. And so, clearly it's reinforced, but if he ever falls into the water, dude's going to sink. Like, no sailor worth their salt will ever wear body armor out in the open ocean, you know? And so, design-wise, he's a little weird. He's dressed like he's ready for some kind of medieval type of warfare combined with some kind of pistols on him. He doesn't really fit. Like, it doesn't look like he's prepared to sail. He just got a whole bunch of ships, a whole bunch of men. It's like, hey, let's do it. And got decimated by someone who actually knows what he's doing. That's the vibe I get from Krieg this entire fight. Because Luffy is just wrecking shop this entire time. And they have a little back and forth between Krieg saying, I'm going to be king of the pirates. And then Luffy saying, no, I'm going to be the king of the pirates. And it basically becomes a big old penis measuring contest. And if you're going up against a dude who's basically Mr. Fantastic, you're going to lose. I'm sorry. He's going to have the biggest ween on the ocean.
I know.
But long story short, Krieg gets knocked out by Luffy several times, in fact. And he keeps getting back up. But by the last time Luffy knocks him out, Don Krieg comes back. And his eyes are rolling on the back of his head. He's delirious. He's belligerent. And his own man is like, dude, it's over. You can't keep this up. You're going to die. And so Gin knocks him out, carries him over his shoulder. He basically says, I am so sorry.
I know. It's like when you have your child like picking up from daycare, then the parents comes and is like, oh, I'm sorry if he was a little shit. I'll take him home now.
Basically, Gin is being Mama Bear, taking care of his child, who is also his boss. And so they go on about their way. They promise to not bother them anymore. And Gin leaves some parting words with Sanji, basically letting them know what the Grand Line is like, how they probably shouldn't go out there. It's incredibly dangerous, which only makes Luffy want to go out there even harder. But they have a tender goodbye. Oh, go ahead.
I think Sanji was unconscious right at this point. Because I don't know if he was able to talk to Gin, but I think Gin told Luffy that if whenever he wakes up, just let me know that I'll be waiting in for him at the Grand Line.
I believe so. Both Luffy and Sanji were kind of in and out. It looked like.
Yeah.
I didn't write that down in my notes, but that sounds familiar. And this is when your Panda Man shark comes in. After everyone has their little tender moment. Well, let me rewind. It's not exactly a tender moment that he comes in because Luffy wants to invite Sanji onto his crew. Sanji keeps saying, no, I'm going to be here. I want to become head chef. I'm not going to leave until Zeph recognizes my cooking skills and I take over for him. All the chefs try to basically get Sanji to leave. They try to kick him out by lying and saying his food is crap. You have to go and cook all across the ocean in order to get better. Basically trying to convince him to leave on his own accord.
They were like all trying to get her like on his nerves, right? Like they were just trying to like piss him off and be like, you know what? You're not good enough to cook at a restaurant. You'd be better off cooking for some dumb pirates.
Pretty much. They they're being assholes about it. They don't want to be, but that's the only way they can get under Sanji's skin because he's extra stubborn. And during this time, that's when Yosaku comes back. I guess he swam all the way back because Johnny, Yosaku, Zoro, who's unconscious, and Usopp try to go after Nami. However, they're in this much smaller ship. The Marigo is much faster, and they couldn't keep up with her. So, based off of her trajectory and the wake that was left by her ship, she's going to a bad place, they determine. They have a feeling of where she's going, but they don't exactly say where. If you look at the couple of panels, chapters and chapters before all this, when she looks at a bunch of bounties that come out of Johnny's bag, she recognizes one of the bounties, the wanted poster anyway. She recognizes one of those, and that's kind of what sends shivers down her spine. That's what triggers her to leave. It definitely is Oda planting seeds that she's going to go find whoever that wanted poster is talking about. Because when she leaves, she also mentions that she actually likes Luffy. She actually likes Zoro, even though they haven't been together for a while. If you're reading this week by week, it feels like they've been together for like 6 months, but in actuality, it's probably only been like 2 or 3 weeks. Not a lot of time. And she regrets leaving them the way she is, and she wants to meet them again to sail for real because she seems to be going to go get her freedom because she mentions that she can't wait to be free. So that's something that we're definitely going to be covering in the next arc. So Yosaku relays that information. Sanji, Zeph, and all the chefs, they have their tearful goodbyes. Sanji says, "Thank you for everything. Thank you for all that you've done for me." And they wish him the best. And he joins Luffy officially as their official cook. And they go off to go see what's going on with Nami and catch up with the rest of their crew, including Johnny and Yosaku.
Yep.
And so that was the Barati arc, which is a fantastic arc. It's one of my favorites. And I remember many scenes from this arc from decades ago when I first picked up One Piece.
A lot of memorable characters too got involved, so I think that's what really made it really strong within the East Blue Saga too.
Absolutely. We got tons of backstory and character relationships. We actually got some stuff about Zoro. And we don't get a lot of stuff about Zoro, you know? I mean, we get a lot about his fights and everything, but not about who he is, what he wants to be, his goals or anything. And we get a taste of the kind of person he wants to be in Mihawk, which is really cool. We see more about Nami and her internal struggle. And also the fact that she told... Now, I know quite a few people actually ship Nami and Sanji, but I noticed that as soon as he starts simping all over her, she's just like, ugh, another one. And she turns on the charm and goes along with it so she can get free stuff from him. And I'm like, you cold-blooded woman. So we get aspects about her like that as well. You know, she's manipulative to get what she wants, which we already know, but it's nice to see in another light. We didn't get a lot with Usopp, unfortunately, in this one.
Oh yeah, you're right. We did it, unfortunately. I mean, only like at the beginning, like when we get his established role in the crew. But I think that was mostly it for Usopp.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like Luffy was picking up on the comedy in this one a lot more. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Because this was a very jam-packed story arc. There was a lot going on. It was a little chaotic towards the end. Lots of characters on the page and the panels and such. Lots of things to keep track of.
Yeah.
But this was fun. This is definitely Oda figuring out where he wants to go with One Piece. How he's going to, you know, figure out what kind of formula he's going to use, his story structure. Mm-hmm. And again, the Mihawk fight with Zoro was just phenomenal. There's not another fight like it. At least not in my memory, because it's been a long time since I've read this series, but even comparing it to other anime-style fight scenes, I noticed that quite a few anime like to use really random attacks just for showing off essentially what the animators can do, what the storyboard artists can do. Mm-hmm. This one was not wasting any movements. It wasn't wasting any time. With Luffy's fight with Don Krieg, it felt a little weird because Luffy kind of fished him off twice, you know? He had two different moments where the fights could have ended. It went on a little too long for me.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up where like I felt like I like everything that happened in the Barati arc except just the fight between Luffy and Don Krieg because I felt like it went on a little too long for me.
Yeah, and it
Uh,
kind of didn't make sense, you know, like
yeah.
Krieg pulls out his shoulder pauldron, slaps him on a stick, and now he has like an exploding spear. Okay.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that thing. I always wonder like how it would work because like it looked like a lollipop, but when he slams it, like it would make an explosion, which I'm like, okay, I mean
And
that's something.
he already has other weapons on it too. Like he has guns, he has cannons, he has his poison gas that comes out of that thing. It's like an interdimensional whatever you call it. It was strange. But
Yeah.
that's
It
an
reminds
honest
me of
Go ahead.
oh yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna segue into some critiques that I know about the show in general, especially for people who aren't exactly accustomed to Japanese style storytelling. Their number one complaint is how long the fights are. And again, One Piece is kind of infamous for just how long and drawn out their fights are. It's honestly the weakest part of the show, or the manga, in my opinion. The strongest part is Oda's writing between characters, their interactions with each other, their connections with each other, their backstories. That's the strongest part of the show, in my opinion. The fights were a little on the weak side, aside from the Zoro Mihawk fight, because,
Mhm.
again, comparing that to his previous fights from before and after, this is just so different. You know, it stands on its own just based off of how he handles it.
Yeah.
But even with all that, I really enjoyed rereading this story arc, and I'm very excited for Arlong Park. I remember that was another one that really stuck in my head. Uh, and it was actually the only arc that I actually watched on the Foxbox back in the day.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see how they handle it because there's some pretty gory parts in the Arlong Park version that they had to censor on TV, which we'll cover when we get there. But
Yeah,
out
it's
of,
not very child friendly, so I think I didn't see the Foxbox version, but I'm really interested in seeing your experience with that one.
yeah, because if memory holds correct, it gets a little gruesome at certain parts. But
Yeah.
uh, also, from what I understand from the fan base in general, especially as newcomers, it's during and after Arlong Park where people tend to either jump off or stay on board with the One Piece story. Because by then, we essentially have our entire crew figured out for the most part, and we just start hitting the ground running after that. Even though it's like by chapter 100, you should know if you like something by 100 chapters in. But
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, this story goes on for so long. It is constantly evolving and figuring itself out. If you have anything going on for 20 plus years, it's going to have its different stages, and I love it from beginning to where we are currently. I'm totally down for this ride, and I can't wait to get back to Arlong Park.
Uh, I I'm looking forward blah, blah. I'm looking forward to Arlong Park too because I think I think you said that you've really felt like the like Oda's skill set for this arc. I thought for me it was for Arlong Park where I think we have all these characters and we all and especially with Nami and just to see her full story of her past and her own growth. So I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I think that's going to be a very interesting art to get into.
Absolutely. So we'll catch you guys next time. We're going to be covering Arlong Park. That's going to be chapters 69 through 95. And we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Alrighty, thank you for listening.